Session of our bulletin today, where we focus on the threshold of withdrawing graft cases in the country. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, this particular matter is of public interest, bearing in mind the fight against graft and how it is of public importance. Now, we want to have a conversation based on this. What exactly does it mean to the criminal justice system when the ODPP and the EACC are at loggerheads in terms of withdrawal of cases? Does it point to a bigger problem ahead in the prosecution of graft cases in the country? And perhaps, just to put context to this particular conversation, allow me to bring up a ruling passed by Justice Professor Sifuna in a case before the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Division Court on Josephat Kipkoech Sirma versus the Director of Public Prosecution, where Justice Professor Sifuna delivered a ruling, part of which said, and I quote, "This, to me, is a laundry manner of prosecution practice that is steadily, undesirably, and notoriously taking root in Kenya. In criminal trials, the prosecution should present the evidence it has and let the court decide." He goes further to say, the prosecution cannot, in the course of the trial, suddenly make a 360-degree turn and declare the accused innocent. Such a declaration is unacceptable and extrajudicial. Well, that's an interesting ruling that was passed on 31st January this year, and perhaps putting to question the move we've seen by the ODPP to withdraw some graft cases, some of them high profile in the country. What exactly does it mean? To help us understand more on the threshold of withdrawing of these graft cases, I'm joined by two guests. Allow me to introduce them right now. Sheila Masinde, the Executive Director of Transparency International, is joining me in studio. Thank you so much for your time, Sheila. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Equally joined by Dr. Maxwell Miyawa, who's a scholar and constitutional lawyer. Wakili, asante sana for your time. Karibu to our studios.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Okay, so before we get to the reaction of what you have to say about that particular ruling, I'd like to begin with you, Sheila, because Transparency International is quite vocal about matters anti-graft, fighting corruption in the country. And recently, in your 2023 Corruption Perception Index, you revealed how weakening justice systems leaves corruption unabated. So talk to us about this, how transparency, public trust in the criminal justice process is quite important.
Thanks, Jesse, and thank you for having this conversation at this point in time. Yeah. When not just us, but various Kenyans are having concerns about the withdrawal of corruption cases and also acquittals of people who have been accused of corruption. There have been some cases which have been in that pipeline for quite some time, but then we've recently lost a number of them. And so it's quite disheartening, particularly when you look at where the fight against corruption needs to be going, and despite some of the commitments even coming from political leaders that have been made in regard to strengthening, enhancing the fight against corruption. So for the Corruption Perceptions Index for 2023, and this is a global index by the Transparency International Global Movement that was released about 3 weeks ago now, on January 30th for the last year, for 2023. It makes a nexus between justice, access to justice, and corruption. What it has found is that countries which you find at the bottom of the CPI are also the same countries that you'll find at the bottom of the rule of law index, and where they are pretty much what we'd call dysfunctional justice systems. What does that mean? If you have a dysfunctional justice system, it means that basically you're not able to get remedies, from that justice system. And there have been questions whether we are heading that direction as a country, because if we're not able to get justice for corruption cases, we've had a number of cases that have been withdrawn. Last year, we attempted to even quantify, and even that quantification, I would say, was just a drop in the ocean. When you looked at the cases that had been withdrawn by the ODPP in 1.5 years since September 2022, we found that that is almost costing Kenyans 73 billion. At that time, we've not even added the Aror and Kimwarere case and others that have joined that pile.
Yeah.
We've not even looked at cases where there have been acquittals, and suspiciously, there have been no, at least we are not aware of publicly, there are no publicly known attempts by the ODPP to pick some of these cases that have, when they have been withdrawn or where there have been acquittals.
Yeah.
Because naturally, if you've worked so hard in quotes,
to build up a case.
To build up a case.
Yeah.
Some of those cases have taken so long. If they've taken almost 5 years in court, in the hearing and hearing process, in the adjudication process, but they take, and there's a period before where they have to be investigated. Then the case files have to be reviewed or analyzed. That takes a long period of time, inordinate period of time, if you ask me.
True.
It's something, again, that we have to look in terms of access to justice. Why are these cases taking so long? But they have taken long. You have consumed taxpayers' money in investigations. And corruption cases are not, they're not straitjacket affairs. You really have to invest. Sometimes you get forensic auditors, forensic investigators. Sometimes you even have to get, expertise from outside to come and look into those matters. So it costs a lot of money. Then you have to review the file. There's that back and forth normally between the ODPP and the investigator. Then they go to court. You're talking about judges' time, magistrates' time, lawyers, prosecutors. All these people have taken their time. So there's a lot of technical, human resources that goes in that you have to quantify. So we've only quantified, the value of that case at the point when the charges were made.
Yeah.
What was the value of that case? What was the amount of money that was said to have been lost? So if we were to go deeper, which need much more capacity, the amount of money could be more.
Okay.
And that's why we are so concerned, because it means that when the justice system doesn't work for you, it means that you're not able to safeguard public resources, that we are losing public resources at a time when the country needs them the most. And that's one of the things that we have highlighted in the Corruption Perceptions Index, that when countries have dysfunctional justice systems, then it means that comes at a great cost to the public, because they are not guaranteed of their rights.
Okay. Wakili Miao, as you come in, the presumption of innocence